Star Trek Beyond, please give it up for my good friend, Karl Urban.
Gorgeous, right? Scotty Mans, are you out of your Vulcan mind?
See? This is my call.
So great to be here. So great to be anywhere. As Keith Richards said.
You know, Karl, when Star Trek 2009 came out on May 8th, okay, but to backtrack, I saw that film on April 21st at the Paramount Theater. Okay, and JJ Bad Robot, the reps at Paramount, you know, they know I'm that guy, but they also know that I'm a film critic. So they're like, we got to get this guy in to see it, because if he loves it as a movie and he loves it as a fan, we are in great shape. And I loved it on both counts, and I saw it again for a second time 3 days later, and then at the Four Seasons that weekend on April 24th, you walk into the room.
Allegedly.
And you met me for the first time. We met for the first time, and you're like, this guy is out of his fucking mind. But it was a great meeting, because like, if you watch the raw interview that I did with Karl, it was like, he thinks I'm like, okay, so this guy's obviously a little weird. But throughout the course of the interview, he could tell that I loved the film and that I knew my shit.
It's true, that is true.
But listen, of all the actors in that film, obviously Zachary Quinto, he's playing Spock. So he's gonna play Spock as close to the way Leonard Nimoy played it, but still making it his own. But the way you played Bones, and that great introduction of like how you got the nickname, oh, she left me with my bones. It was your delivery, the way you portrayed McCoy was a tough rope to walk, because it could have been an imitation. It could not have worked, but it was so affectionate. Why did you decide to portray McCoy in a way that was nostalgic, but also current?
Well, you know, for me, obviously, you know, I grew up watching the original series and was a huge fan of it. And it just seemed to me that if I was not in this film and that I was going to go to the cinema and watch it, I would feel disappointed if I didn't see some semblance of what the late great DeForest Kelley had done. Because, you know, and I have just a huge amount of respect for him, you know, coming onto that show, and by the quality and virtue of his contribution to that triumvirate, you know, that his character became elevated to, you know, the sort of third most important character, arguably, in the original series. So for me, that was definitely the challenge, was to, okay, how do I incorporate some of the essence of what he did so wonderfully well, yet also, you know, sort of make the character my own, so to imbue the character with that. And that was really the challenge. And, you know, it was certainly, in the beginning, I didn't, you know, I struggled with where that line was, but, you know, thankfully, you know, I had great support there with JJ, and obviously, you know, a wonderful material to work with. I mean, that opening scene, you know, don't pander to me, kid, one tiny crack in the hull and our blood boils in 13 seconds. Solar flare might crop up, cook us in our seats, and while you're sitting pretty with a case of Andorian shingles, see if you're still so relaxed when your eyeballs are bleeding. Come on. Great writing. I mean, that's how good it is. I remember it, and it's nearly 10 years later.
That is really damn impressive.
Roberto Ossi, Alex Kurtzman, I mean, they wrote great dialogue. And the wonderful thing about JJ also is that he was very open to the collaborative spirit. I read an earlier draft of the script, and there was a line in there about Bones' nickname and how we got it. And then in the shooting draft, it was out. And so we turned up to set, and I went up to JJ and said, listen, I've had this idea about, you know, the nickname of Bones and how we can get it in there. And I pitched it to him. He was like, yeah, great, let's shoot it. If it doesn't work, I won't put it in. I'm like, great. And it worked, and he left it in, and the rest is history. And I remember shooting that day, and it was my first day, and I think that it's also one of Chris Pine's first days. And I remember all of us sort of, you know, being, you know, just I guess aware of the legacy and how important it was to get it right and also do our own thing, and that was really the challenge, you know.
And that was mission accomplished. Like the way the movie, it was so many words to describe the film, but like it was such a confident film. It was vibrant, you know. It wasn't like people feel like they have to make sci-fi dark and all this, but it was a vibrant film, and it came out in 2009. You know, it was after like the recession and all the bust and everything, and people were going through hard times. And here's this like really positive movie. And when the movie opened in May, after all that like sort of the news that you all must have felt like, whoa, like this is like this legacy and all this, you know, 30 years, 40 years, 50 almost. Like how great did it feel that it got these amazing reviews? It was like 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the you know, it was the highest grossing. It still is the highest grossing Star Trek film domestically at the box office. So how did that feel that everybody, it wasn't just embraced by fans, but like everybody loved the film? It just stood on its own.
Well, firstly, it was a huge relief. it's good when you do something and it works and it's appreciated. But you know, I also think it's just a testament to, you know, again to JJ as a filmmaker. I mean, just from that very first opening frame of space, and you hear that Star Trek classic ping, and you go, oh, I know this world, and it immediately kind of grounded it in a familiarity that I think we can, you know, fans of it of Star Trek instantly connected with it. Yeah, it was an amazing sort of point in time because, you know, Star Trek was cool again.
Star Trek was cool again,
and that was awesome to be a part of. You know, so yeah, it was. I think we were all, you know, quite blown away by the success of that movie, we're all very, very proud of it.
Yeah, I remember in August of 2015, the one and only time I got to do this, I went to Vancouver, and I went to the set where they were filming Star Trek Beyond, and I got to see like the quarry, you know, the rock quarry where they were filming all the planet scenes. And when you're inside the quarry, you can't see above the horizon. You feel like you're on this alien planet. But you know, I got to interviewed you and Chris and who else? There was somebody else. But with Star Trek Beyond, so Star Trek 2009 was a great action film, and it was a great Star Trek movie. But I felt like Beyond was the closest to Star Trek than the other two.
Oh, you guys like that one?
I love that.
Me too. I do too. Thank you. Yeah, you know, the thing that I loved about it was particularly important because obviously it was the 50th anniversary, and it was, I think, very important to everyone concerned to do something that was just a lovely nod of appreciation and love to the original series. And I remember talking to Simon, who was writing it, and that was definitely very in the forethought of their mind. They wanted this particular movie to be like a big blown up version of the original series, and we were so fortunate on that to have Simon Pegg and Doug Jung writing it, because we really felt like the lunatics had taken over the asylum. We could go to, you know, they were so accessible, they were there on set every day, and we could go to them with an idea, and if they liked it, they would work with you and put it in the script. And there's like a whole passage of dialogue that I have with Spock as I'm boarding the transporter to head onto the Marauder ship, beginning the third act, where I'm talking about next time you want a plumber, you know, get a pipe removed, get a plumber. I mean, all that sort of stuff came from that interaction with Simon, and he was very open right at the beginning. He emailed us and said, guys, just a heads up, I'm going to write this. If you have any ideas, suggestions, email me, let me know. And that really set the template for our experience. And I got to say, it was, out of the 3 films, it was the most enjoyable experience that I had. The first 2 films we shot in Los Angeles, and of course all the LA-based cast, you know, they have their friends there and their social networks, and so we didn't really hang out together too much off-set. But in Vancouver, we were all like kids away on a summer camp, and we had a lot of fun. We just had a blast. We're hanging out, and it sort of really, I think, bonded us in a way that, you know, when I see the TNG cast, you know, and how tight they are, and I really felt like at the end of Beyond, we were there. And even though we've only made 3 films, feels like we've been in, you know, in it together for a long time, and we're family, and we love each other. We really do. It is literally my favorite cast to work with.
You know what? I got to tell you, Karl, that is definitely a round of applause, because that chemistry is what made me love those movies, especially Beyond. And I remember when I was interviewing you, I waited all day to interview on the set in Vancouver, and I waited so long that it got dark and I missed my flight, but I didn't care, because you came over and we did this interview, and it was like, you gave me like, you know, a professional interview about the film, and then the camera's off, and you said to me, you put your arm around me, true story, he puts his arm around me, he goes, I know how much Star Trek means to you, and you're gonna love this movie. And I was like, why didn't you say that on camera? But when you watch Beyond, and you're watching the scene in the beginning of the film between Kirk and McCoy, and it reminded me of the scene in Balance of Terror, when you know, Kirk is going, why me? You know, in that scene. And
exactly the reference I was going to use.
Right. Oh wait, here's another for you. So, most of the time that Spock and McCoy are together, it reminded me of like bread and circuses. And I know, another reference you were going to use.
On the tip of my tongue.
But the chemistry that you had, and going from JJ on 2 films as a director to Justin Lin. And, you know, there was sort of like some worry about Justin Lin because he directed 4 Fast and Furious movies, but he was a fan.
Justin Lin, I have nothing but admiration and respect for him. He worked so hard on that movie because we were really up against a deadline. He was the second director to come onto that film, so, you know, really a lot of stuff that was already preconceived and developed got thrown out, and they started again. They rewrote the script. And we had a deadline to make, and a special effects deadline to make, and we had a film to deliver, and we were really up against it. And I mean, you know, seeing how Justin worked, I mean, he was getting like maybe 3 hours sleep a night. He was working on, you know, a full, you know, 12 to 13 hour day on set, and then he would drive straight to the editing suite and then be working on the edit till whatever time, then prep for the next day, get 3 hours sleep, come to work the next day. And he was just like a machine, and he just worked his butt off. And I love that man. I just, for what the film he delivered, in the time that he delivered it in, I just, as I said, I just love that guy.
Wow.
Great guy. And he's a fan. Like, he's a genuine fan, like, you know, like us. He grew up watching the original series, and he was, it was very important to him that, you know, I guess the character dynamics and the relationships that he connected with in the original series were there on screen. And personally for me, when I read Beyond the script, you know, I felt that it was the most developed version of McCoy that I'd had the great pleasure to play, and And the thing that I loved about it was that it delivered something new to the audience. And I think that's the key of the longevity of Star Trek, is that you want to continue to develop those characters to deliver something new. And that whole pairing between Spock and Bones when they're on the planet, and you know, they get to share some time and come to sort of understand one another, and then, you know, eventually go back to their respective corners and take up their respective attitudes, but there is respect there, and I thought that was so cool.
You know, absolutely. What's going on with Star Trek 4? Talk to me. Just give it up. My friend, I gotta know. I gotta be honest with you, I emailed JJ a couple days ago, and I said, hey, I'm going to this big massive convention. Give me something. Give me something, anything, a morsel. Just tell me it's happening. He never responded. So now it's on you, brother. Hot seat.
Yeah, listen, I'm the last guy to know, really. You know, what I do know is that there is a genuine desire on behalf of not only JJ and everybody at Bad Robot, but also our cast, to make another one. And, you know, yeah, we would really love to do that. And you know, really, it's, you know, I think the ball's in Paramount's court. I believe that they've just, there's a new head of Paramount Studios, and I think they're really just in the, great guy, and they're just in the process, I think, of looking at their slate and what's coming up. So fingers crossed we get to make another one. That being said, if we don't, I gotta say, if Beyond is the note that we ended on, as sad as that is, I'm actually happy, because I'm happy with that film.
Yeah, I do agree with that. All three movies are great. And, you know, the beauty of it is that if they make another, you know, Trek 4...
He's in it, by the way. If we make a Trek 4, he's in it.
You heard that. You heard that.
We're getting them measured up for the red shirt as we speak.
I'll take it.
We'll just beam down. Opening scene. Kirk McCoy in a red shirt beam down and just gets obliterated immediately. He'll be there for a second.
I'm down with that. I am down with that. But like now, you know, obviously there's another show coming, Discovery.
Oh my gosh, how excited are you guys about that? How cool is that? I cannot wait. I recently bumped into Akiva Goldsman, and I cannot wait to see that show. It just looks, from the trailer, it looks phenomenal. It looks like they've sort of visually taken the energy that JJ infused, you know, the new Star Trek films with, and sort of squished it into television, which I love.
Totally, that's exactly what it feels like. It does. It feels like cinematic television. But you've been now part of so much in television and in film. I mean, look back to the beginning of the O's, and you're part of a massive franchise, the third film of which won all 11 Academy Awards for which it was nominated. That is The Lord of the Rings. Where to even start with working on Two Towers and Return of the King? Because, you know, they were all filmed at the same time, and nothing like that had ever been done in movies ever, and now it happens a lot where they'll film 2 or 3 movies back to back. But like, what was it like to be part of such a massive scale Hollywood production filming overseas like that?
Well, first of all, it was filming in my home country.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
not overseas.
Yeah, overseas
for you.
Yeah. Well, that was amazing. I mean, you know, for me as a pretty young actor at the time, to be working with the likes of Ian McKellen and Viggo Mortensen, with the great Peter Jackson, seeing how they would apply the craft, it was an experience like no other except for Star Trek. You know, I guess the bond that was formed with that cast of Lord of the Rings is the only thing I've ever felt that's been close to that is working on Star Trek, and you know, that's it's a rarity. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. Yeah.
When that third film in 2000, well, it came out in 2003, but at the Oscars in 2014, It was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it was batting 1,000. It won every single Oscar for which it was nominated. What's to be a part of a like you're watching the Oscars and you're seeing it just go check, check, check like that. Like, how personally gratifying was it for you to be a part of something that is forever locked in Hollywood history?
Well, I mean, you know, I guess I felt very, very proud of everybody, of everybody's work involved, and it was just really lovely to see them get that nod and acknowledgement, and because, you know, we all worked so hard on those movies, and it was lovely that it was appreciated. And it's not often that a film of that genre ever in history has done that.
Yeah.
It's never. I mean, it's sort of a, you know, a fantasy film like that to do the clean sweep. But, you know, we worked for years on that movie. Years, and so yeah, it was just wonderful to be a part of it.
Another film I loved from 2004, The Bourne Supremacy. Matt Damon and director Paul Greengrass, he really, like, you watch any of his films, like, it's like you need a drink. Like, it is so visceral. And like what was it like working on that film? Because all three of those movies, The Bourne Identity, The Bourne Supremacy, and The Bourne Ultimatum, they're all great.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you know, again, you know, going into that production was incredible. We shot that in Moscow for 3 weeks, then we were in Berlin, and then we went to Goa in India. And I mean, you know, they taught me deadly skills that I can never use in real life on that movie. I still look at a Mercedes G-Wagon and have devious thoughts. They taught me how to do a reverse 180 in this Mercedes G-Wagon, and then actually let me do it in the streets of Moscow. It was insane. Yeah, it was quite incredible. We were supposed to we were shooting in Moscow with the second unit, and they let me do like 90% of my own driving. And you know, I remember we were supposed to have the streets locked down, which means that there's like police at both ends of the street, and they stop the traffic, and then you go and all the movie cars go on. Well, for whatever reason, we found ourselves in a situation where we only had one cop. I think money wasn't paid to the right people or whatever, so they, you know, so consequently we went around Moscow with a very small skeleton crew stealing shots. And when you see me driving that G-Wagon or that BMW down those streets, we're doing it on streets that, for real, with real traffic, driving at speed. And we've just got one cop going, okay, go. It was a little scary, but so much fun.
The movie is awesome. The movie is awesome. I mean, Bourne Identity was great. Like, when you have a sequel that tops its predecessor, it's rare, but it's so gratifying. And also, speaking of a sequel that I'm very excited to see, 2 weeks ago in San Diego at the Marvel panel in Hall H at Comic-Con, for those of you who've been there, Hall H, that's all you need to say. And Marvel always like shuts it down with that Saturday panel, but they showed footage for Thor Ragnarok, which opens this November. My friend, tell me about this third movie, because it looks tonally, stylistically, like nothing like its two predecessors.
Yeah, look, I have no idea what this movie's gonna be like. I know it's gonna be good. I know that, but it's like we shot so much stuff. We shot what was on the page, and then we shot pages and pages of stuff we just made up. And I think a lot of that made it in the film. And working with this great New Zealand director, Taika Waititi. From directed Hunt for the Wilder People and Boy. He's an old friend of mine from New Zealand. And, you know, for me, I play a character called Scourge, and, you know, my character is sort of operating the Bifrost device, and suddenly Kate Blanchett flies through the Bifrost, and I very astutely realize that I either join her or die. So my character is a survivalist. And the journey of Scourge is really, okay, now you've made a pact with the devil, it comes with a price. And, you know, that price is constantly upped through the movie, and that's his journey.
You think about Marvel is this. So in 2008, almost 10 years ago, so you had the first Iron Man. End of the first Iron Man, you know, Nick Fury shows up and talks about the Avengers Initiative. And then that sets up phase 1 leading up to the Avengers. Then you have phase 2, and now I think we're in phase 3, maybe we're in phase 4, I don't even know at this point, but the way the characters sort of popped in and out of each other's films, and Marvel's been batting 1,000, all the movies are good or great, and it's sort of unprecedented in Hollywood history what Kevin Feige has been able to do. So compared to, like, let's say, Bourne and Lord of the Rings and Star Trek, what sort of signifies or dignifies the Marvel Studios perspective and working on a film like that compared to the others?
Look, that's a great question. All I can really say is I know what it's like to work with them, and I found the experience to be inclusive, collaborative. They are great, fun people, and I think they like to infuse their movies with fun.
Yeah.
You know, they don't overly take themselves so seriously, and at the end of the day, for them, it's about family, and it's about you care for these characters, and it's about fun. And you know, I think it's just a great time to be a fan of cinema and movies at the moment. We hear just so much from the Star Wars, obviously us, you know, these Marvel movies, and you know, the success of Wonder Woman, I think, is fantastic. That's just awesome, particularly in this day and age, to have such a strong feminine archetype out there front and center. I think was brilliant. So yeah, it's just a great time. Should we take some questions from these
Yes, we
guys?
should. Yes, we should.
Let's do that.
Hello, Karl.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. I like to ask about the late co-star Anton Yelich.
Yes.
How'd you like working with him on your first 3 appearances?
Oh wow! I mean, Anton was such a beautiful man, and he is irreplaceable. Irreplaceable. You know, when I met Anton, he was literally just a kid. He had his mom on set on the first movie. And I remember them in the, you know, on the corner of the stage, arguing with each other in Russian. There's lots of hand gestures, and you know. And then it was, you know, through the course of the films, you know, he sort of, you know, obviously, you know, got older, but he was still fundamentally such a wonderful kid at heart. He was the smartest guy in the room, but you wouldn't know it. He wasn't flashy about his knowledge or showing you that he was smart. He knew about so much. He knew about art, about cinema, photography, you know, literature. He was such a beautiful guy, and he had such an inquisitive nature. And he was constantly interested in learning about the human experience, and genuinely compassionate for other people and their experience and what they were going through. And he was a wonderful little deviant too, which I won't go into. But he was such a beautiful, beautiful guy, and we were obviously, you know, I don't want to trivialize this at all, but we were devastated at his loss. Absolutely devastated. It was brutal. And then to literally 4 weeks after we lost him, to have to go out there and promote Beyond was the toughest thing I think that we have ever had to do. So yeah, miss him. Thank you for your question.
Thanks for the question. Who's next?
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
I haven't seen you all week.
I know.
Karl, yesterday was just a gas. Thank you so much for coming and spending the whole day with us. It was just incredible.
I didn't have a choice. No, I'm kidding. I loved it.
Sorry for my cheat sheets, but you make me a little nervous. Okay.
Bless you.
All right.
Hey, I just want you to know I love you. I really do. No, I love all of you.
Aww.
And I know I'm going to go a little deeper here with this. I don't care if you like me. Nothing's going to stop me from loving you. Anyway, as you were.
Nothing will ever stop me from from loving you. All right, I have so much respect for you as an actor and the choices that you have made in your career, which have been incredible. Okay, in my house, there are 3 things we do not speak of. Number 1 is Star Trek V. Number 2 is how Fox treated Joss Whedon on Firefly. And number 3, we only speak of your Judge Dredd movie. So we all know that the original artistic concept of Judge Dredd, he never took his helmet off. He was Judge Dredd on the law. So when you were brought into that process, did the directors and the creative staff putting that movie together, did they get it? Or when you were brought in, did you kind of have to fight to keep that artistic integrity of that character intact?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I just, early on in the piece, I met with Alex Garland and the producers, and we had a very frank discussion about it. I'd read the script. I thought it was brilliant. Clearly, as was written, the character never took his helmet off, and they were a little concerned because I'd met with a bunch of Hollywood actors, and most of them were like, "Can we just sneak one scene in with the helmet comes off?" They said to me, "You do realize, and you are okay with the fact that the helmet stays on?" And I said to them, "I wouldn't be taking this meeting if I had read a Judge Dredd script and the helmet came off. It's not Judge Dredd." And so I think that gave them a degree of confidence right there to proceed with me, and just had such an incredible experience making that movie. So thank you. I appreciate that it resonated for you.
Is there going to be another one?
You know what? The guys at Rebellion are currently developing a television series, roughly 10, 13 television series. I'm in discussions with them about that. I have told them that if they write the material and give Dredd something to do and give him a function, I will be there. I would love to continue.
Thank you.
And don't get killed off in the Chronicles.
Yes.
Thank you. You made somebody very happy. Thank you. Next question. Yes, our friend Leaf, right? Yeah, Leaf. He's been up here all week, hasn't he?
Everybody loves it. Mr. Urban, thank you so much for coming back to Vegas. I mean, we missed you the past couple of years, so it's great to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be back.
Okay, I was hoping you could help me out with something that I read, and that is that after Star Trek Into Darkness, you were kind of unsure as to whether or not you wanted to return for the 3rd film. And it was the enthusiasm of Justin Lin that got you on board, which is really cool because McCoy has all the best lines in Star Trek Beyond, sure. But I just was wondering if that was true, that you were unsure, and what the reasons were.
Well, thank you. Yeah, look, there is some truth to the story. Firstly, I was a little sort of, I guess, what's the word, disappointed with, I guess, the lack of development for McCoy in the 2nd movie. So there was that. Even though I had an amazing experience, obviously, working with JJ and that cast, at the end of the day, I didn't have much to do. And when they came to me with the offer for the 3rd Star Trek movie, I was literally in the final stages of negotiating another film. But it happened all at a rush, it all happened very late. And I'm like, well guys, I've already committed to this. We're, in the final stages of wrapping this down, and and there was no script they could show me. And so, they were basically asking me to take a leap of faith with them. And it really, and I was unsure. I knew that if I didn't do it, I would regret it because, as I said before, I mean, it's like family with those guys, and we have so much fun. But it was really Justin Lin. I got on the phone with Justin, and he, even though I couldn't read a script, he told me the story. And when he sort of explained the situation of Bones and Spock, being shot out in a turbo lift into space, and then, you know, crash landing on a planet and being marooned together, I'm like, I am in a big way. So I literally had to call up this other movie and go, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm going to pull out. I'm so sorry. And so that was really it for me. And I think it was, you know, sort of me letting them know that I was somewhat expected a higher caliber of contribution from the character of McCoy. I think also prompted them to develop it more, and certainly had a great ally in Simon Pegg. And you know, because I grew up watching the original series, and I always loved how that triumvirate worked together, and how you had, you know, essentially what Roddenberry did was sort of split Kirk's personality into three, and he would have the sort of two aspects of his brain argue out the dilemma of the week. You know, obviously Spock being the sort of cold, hard, rational, scientific, logical perspective. McCoy being, you know, passionate, altruistic, human, and you know, and then Kirk sort of getting to take the best points of both arguments and then make the decision and proceed with action. And that was sort of really the core of the show. And you know, so I felt that you know, it was very interesting in the reboot. What kind of happened was Spock became, I guess, a lot more contemporary, or he was a little bit more in touch with his emotion. He was a little bit more emotional. So it made that argument somewhat more difficult to play. You know, and so, but that's actually why I was so appreciative of Star Trek Beyond, and how we actually got to sort of explore that together, and just some great interactions. And you set these characters up at the beginning, like when they dock at that space station, and I'm like, you guys break up? I'm like, what'd you do? You know, and he's just like, and Spock cuts Bones down so coldly, and it's just wonderfully written, because it establishes that friction right there. So anyway, I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You know, Karl, I gotta say, at the end of Beyond, when you know, the new Enterprise takes off, and everyone on the cast got to do the Space, the Final Frontier, that was a really, you know, it was moving that, like, everyone got their say in it, everyone got to be a part of that. So, yeah, of course, I know we'd all love to see another film, but at the same time, it does sort of like wrap it up with a little bow, if it doesn't, but we hope it does. Next question.
Hi, I was wondering, did you ever feel like you were at a disadvantage while filming because you never got to pick DeForest Kelley's mind about your character?
That's a great question.
Thank you. That is a great question. Thank you. You know, yeah, I would have loved to have met DeForest, and I've talked to a multitude of people who had the great pleasure and you know, benefit and honor of interacting with him, and I just have so much respect for what he did. And I hear he's just, from what I understand, such a beautiful man, and I mean, I felt blessed to have known and worked with Leonard, and to have him on our set, and I know that he and Zach became, you know, really tight. And you know, I tell you this story. We were the cast sort of, after we shot the first one, and I think it was being released, William Shatner had a charity event, and a whole bunch of us went along, and Leonard Nimoy and his wife Susan, they went along too. And I was walking ahead of them, and suddenly I hear, "Hey, Karl!" And I turned around, and it was Susan, and she called me back. She said, she beckoned me to come over, and she said, "Karl, I just want you to know that when Leonard watched the movie the other night, when you came on screen, he cried." I was like, oh, wow, was I that bad? And what it was is that the work that I had done reminded him of his dear friend, his dear gone friend. And to me, that was, I think, the greatest nod of appreciation or accolade that I have ever had, especially within the Star Trek fraternity, to know that what I did was on the right track.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question. Yes, next. What's your name?
Hi, thank you so much for coming. I've been a fan of yours since Xena, and thank you for capturing McCoy so well. I really appreciate that. But I would like to ask you about Almost Human. I thought it was a visually stunning show, especially the two lead actors, you and Michael Healy.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with you.
I'm just wondering, do you think the show was a little bit too sophisticated for the viewing audience? What do you think happened?
No, not at all. I think that it was. I think that it was a smart, funny show. That it was just finding its feet, so to speak. I don't know why, for whatever reason, that it didn't continue. But I'm grateful for the experience. I loved working with Michael Ealy, and I loved working with that cast and crew. Certainly, it's just one of those things. And I feel that had we have continued, it only would have gotten stronger. And I think it's constantly vexing for fans of it. Not only are they disappointed that the show didn't continue, but they come up to me and go, "What's behind the wall?" I don't know either.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. What's your name?
Dana, good morning.
Good morning.
Quick question. In January, you will be attending a cruise. Is this your first on a ship?
It's my first cruise. Yeah, I'm attending this Star Trek cruise. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been on any sort of cruise whatsoever. Slightly horrifying. But I hear it's a lot of fun. I talked to a bunch of the guys, the TNG guys who went on it last year, and Mr. Shatner went on it last year, and had a great time. So I'm like, yeah, Caribbean, why not? I'm looking forward to it. Should be fun.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Good afternoon. My name is Shazi. I have a question. Is the studio going to release DVDs with extended versions of Star Trek? Because especially the first one, sort of like, there was a lot of things missing that, we had to go see the deleted scenes to really get it. But it would be excellent because Lord of the Rings was amazing how they came out with DVDs and it had the extended version. It's like, wow, that makes sense now.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love that idea? That's a great idea.
Can you pitch that, or can you?
Yeah, I think we should release an extended version with all our dub smashes included in the cut. I think that'll be great. Listen, I don't know. That's a question for the studio. It's a question for Bad Robot and Justin Lin and those guys. I don't know what extra material is there. I think that I'm sure if they had it, that maybe one day they would, no doubt. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Well, Karl Urban is going to be signing at his table at like 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. So say hello. He's here to say hello to you. So please do that. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Karl.
Wait, one more question. One more question. Wait, we're gonna one more question.
One more.
Thank you so much. My name's Karina, and it's a pleasure to see you here. I just have to say you just imbued the essence of McCoy into your role. I mean, it was really fantastic. And I have to say you have a lot of charisma, and hope to see you in more films. What are some things that you're thinking about, some projects? And I'm always amazed how people from New Zealand, Australia, and England have such a great American accent. Not a lot of American actors are doing different accents. Anyway, what are some things that you've been maybe looking at?
You're busy.
Thank you. Yeah, I have actually been very busy the last year. Well, obviously, the next thing that I've got coming out is Thor Ragnarok, which is, I think, November the 5th. Go check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Kids will love it. I recently shot a film called Bent, which I'm very excited about. I shot that with Sofia Vergara, who's awesome, and Andy Garcia. That was actually directed by a guy called Bobby Moresco, who's a great writer turned director. He won the Oscar for Crash. He wrote $1 Million Baby. He wrote a great script, so I'm very, very excited about that. Yeah, I've got a couple of other things in the works, and obviously I'm talking to the Dread folks about that. And then hopefully, touch wood, we get to do more Star Trek, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and energy. You were great. Good luck and prosper. I love you. Thank you.